All right, what's going on, guys? All right, so before we get started, we're giving out some stuff. So if anyone's interested in winning free tools, if you could pull out your business cards and aggregate them in the aisle, I'm gonna collect those in a little bit, and then in the middle of this presentation, we'll probably pull a business card or 4 business cards and give away some free tools. Cool little tidbit. So let's actually get started. Hi, we're iFIXIT, and if you are expecting to see a Nintendo teardown, you are in the right spot. If you're not expecting that, then you're probably in the wrong spot. So who am I? I'm Scott Havard. This is a wetsuit. I know this is Austin, so it might be a little foreign, not a lot of ocean around here. I'm a teardown engineer. Well, what does that mean? That's kind of a funny name. Kind of like an engineering reporter. I tear stuff down and I report it to the masses. I'm joined by Evan.
What's up, guys? My name is Evan Nerona. I am also a teardown engineer at iFIXIT. My bread and butter of my job is writing repair guides and teardowns, and our motto is we break things so you don't have to. Let's kick it back to you, Scott.
So I've actually been really impressed. A lot of people here, for it being DAC, knows what iFIXIT is, because iFIXIT has close to nothing to do with this conference, other than the fact we're here to entertain you and actually kind of show you the big picture of things, right? These chips end up in consumer electronics. Kind of showed cool to end the day by showing you, some of the applications of the work. But more importantly, what we do is we put together repair documentation for the masses. So let's say you guys break your iPhone screen. We try to provide that free guide so that you can fix that iPhone screen. We have manuals for just about everything. It's pretty, we've got cars, we've got toaster ovens, we've got laptops, skateboards, you name it. We try to provide free documentation so that you can fix it. We partner with some cool companies to get some cool things going. Patagonia likes us. They're very into sustainability as well as we are. So the nice thing is they'll give us stuff that we can fix and make guides on and help people fix their zipper. Not quite a cell phone, but still an important thing to fix. And so as you kind of are thinking of all these partnerships, this repair, you kind of got to ask yourself, what's the point of repairing a thing? Why would I care? What if I drop can I just buy a new one? Like, why repair? Well, there's lots of reasons. It's sustainable. Some people, it's an important thing to kind of realize that sustainability is important. We generate a ton of e-waste in the world, and that's one aspect that is often overlooked. You hear about CO2 emissions, you hear about landfills filling up, but you don't really hear about the e-waste as much. E-waste is a little different. It's a little tougher to recycle. So it's something that we like to, take note of and then therefore try to repair our stuff to reduce the impact of e-waste. Saves money. Let's look at it. If you drop your phone, you crack your screen, and you buy a new phone, that's a lot of money. You crack your screen, you buy a new screen, and you repair it yourself, it's a lot less money. So saves money. We all like money. We like to save money. Even just with repair, iFIXIT users save tons of money just from fixing stuff themselves. You don't have to buy as much new materials. You don't have to pay other people to fix it, and then they charge exorbitant prices. You're just kind of doing the work yourself, and you are going to save a lot of money. And that's the thing. We're at DAC. Everyone in this room is capable. Everyone in the world is technically capable of repairing stuff. Maybe they need a helping hand in certain points. Maybe they need some guidance. But repair is available, and especially at DAC. I'm sure, I don't know, it's probably mostly engineers. So this is a pretty technically apt crowd. Last thing is repair is freedom. What we mean by that, we're so reliant on technology. If you think of our iPhones and how much we look at it in the course of a day, it's good to not treat it as a black box and to have more control over something that you are so reliant on. So we just like to kind of familiarize people with what they're so reliant on, as opposed to treating this super important instrument as completely unfamiliar. We like to bring it and just be like, hey, look, it's kind of, you can open it up. You can actually see what's inside. You might not understand. You might not know what the logic board in an iPhone is actually doing, but at least you can open it up and be a little bit closer to that thing you're so reliant on. We've got a lot of legislation in the works that we like to push legislation to help people get more access to fix their things. We don't necessarily need people to, release all their traces or, give up all their IP, but it's nice to know how to fix a broken screen. So we kind of try to push companies to, share that sort of information, how to fix a broken screen. Last thing on the kind of repair tidbit is that it's open source and free. So we give our manuals out. So you have no excuse to not fix that screen now because we'll give you the information on how to do it. Tools, I guess, is another story, but we can at least give you the information to get you to the right place to find the tool so that you can fix your stuff.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about the web component of iFixit. I like to say that we're bringing together a community of online people from around the world. We have localization in over 20 languages, and we have a community around the world in countries like India, Canada, South Africa, and it's growing every day. Let's take the next slide. But let's talk about what you guys are really here for, which is teardowns. How many of you have seen an iFixit teardown before, live or on the website? Awesome, cool. So as you know, we're here to tear down the Nintendo Switch, but let's talk about some other things. I'm a photo nerd. This is a Nikon D600 that we tore down a couple months ago. As you can see, it's pretty much gadget porn. It's beautiful on the inside. There's tons of components, and it's pretty impressive to see how it all comes together. And a real quick plug, we do give away our guides for free, but we have to keep the lights on, and the way we do that is by selling tools. As you can see today, I have a ProTech toolkit, and we'll be giving away a couple of those once we draw business cards. So at the end of our teardowns, we talk about repairability as well. And what does that mean? We look at the cost and time it takes to repair something. For example, if a digitizer is fused to a display, it's going to greatly increase the cost of replacing that cracked screen. If a battery is glued into a laptop, for example, we tore about the Surface laptop this week and discovered it was glued shut entirely. So not only is it very difficult to repair, even if you did do it, it would take you quite a bit of time, and we're not a huge fan of that. We also look at design trends. As you know, things are tending towards smaller, slimmer designs, which is good for your pocket, but not necessarily good for repairability and not the best for longevity. And without further ado, let's get to this teardown.
So, the Nintendo Switch. I'm sure a lot of people here have heard of it. If that's, yes, of course they have. It's DAC. We know what the Nintendo Switch is. It's kind of this new approach from Nintendo to do this kind of, I don't know, maybe you call it modular type gaming, where you have a console that can plug into your television at home, and then you got to hit the bus so you can get to what you need to get to on time. With the Switch, there's several components that come with it, and so at iFixit we like to keep in mind everything that, every little aspect, every moving part. So there's a dock, there's the actual Switch, which is like a little display, and then there's some Joy-Con controllers. And so with that, we like to kind of take apart each thing, look at all the, what are things that are going to wear out over time, what's, anything that undergoes mechanical cycles. So think of the game card slot that's going to have, game cards going in and out. That's something that could potentially wear out and need to be replaced. So there's a whole range of things that we like to look at. Can we go back to the slides real quick? So, as I was saying, we do have, and then there's also a dock, the charging dock, which helps you connect to the television. So, first kind of things that we see, like I said, are the moving parts. And so there's two controllers that slide on and off. And so for us, we were super curious, is this going to wear out over time? How durable is this? Is this going to rip out of the side of the plastic? So we tried to look at, the materials that are used, the types of screws if they do come out. Or if it does rip out of the side, you need to replace that little, the mechanism. So with these, we start to just kind of take a lot of glances. So going back to what Evan is doing, he's currently cracking open the Switch. So the Switch, when we did this teardown, we were kind of curious, like what seems like it's going to be the most interesting. We're going to tackle that first. So the actual Switch console seemed like it was going to have the most stuff inside of it. So we start diving into that. It wasn't the most difficult to get into, and we were always excited to see that with Nintendo. And while Evan's continuing to break into that, getting into devices is something that I'll segue on and talk about, because so you're breaking into a device, and that is the gateway to anything that you need to do to repair. So you can look at some different examples. You've got things like the iPad, which is, say you have an iPad battery that burns out, the only way that you're going to get in there to replace that battery is by taking off the display, which means you've got a glass digitizer and an LCD, and covered with adhesive and just like locked in place in the rest of the iPad. So if you need to replace anything within an iPad, you have to go through this incredibly arduous journey of cutting through adhesive, trying to break apart all sorts of just this glue from hell to get to the battery. And then in the process, you often break the display. And then all of a sudden, you've got a double repair. You're paying way more money. And so when we're doing processes like this, where Evan's going through every kind of, every screw, what's available, how do we actually get into this? Because this is the important part, right? If you really need to, the first part of repairing anything is actually cracking open the device.
All right,
So,
and speaking of cracking open, we're just in. Can you guys see that? So we just got this plastic cover off. It's pretty standard, and I'll be moving on to taking out the the micro SD card reader right here.
can we go back to the slides, please? So at iFixit, we're also known for taking pretty pictures. So we're going to run those in parallel to show what we saw the first time. So as a photo, this is actually Evan's hand still. Evan did the all-nighter for this one. So breaking into it, it was pretty exciting. And like I was saying, unlike an iPad, this actually isn't too hard to get into. So everything's kind of held in place by clips. It's not incredibly difficult. So if something does need to be replaced, say the battery, you can actually get into the device to do so with relative ease. Not the easiest in the world, but it's certainly not the hardest. We're greeted with an array of things. As I said earlier, we like to start with the things that we think will be interesting to kind of key us into what we might see with the Joy-Con controllers down the road, or what the dock might also house. The Switch itself, we had a lot of interesting finds. As Evan said, I think did you pull out the game card reader yet?
Right now, yeah.
He's in the process of it, but the game card reader is interesting. Oh, I didn't put a picture of it. The game card reader is interesting because it's removable, which is nice. And as I was saying, that's something that...
Scott, I'm going to correct you real quick. The SD card reader, the game card reader is embedded right there.
Excuse me, the SD card reader. It's engineer, can't talk to people, who would have thought, right? But in any case, so correct me. Thank you, Evan, for correcting me. The SD card slot reader. Okay, but in any case, it's something that undergoes a lot of cycles. So it's something that undergoes wear, and it's something that might actually need to be repaired. So for us, when we open this thing up and we see that a component like that is actually able to pop out, that's a big plus for repair, because that's something that might actually need to be swapped out. You think of the lightning connector on an iPhone, for example, or any phone, when you have a USB-C slot where you need to charge your phone or whatever it may be. You get that feeling where it just kind of doesn't have, like, the pads might be dirty, or it just, you plugged it in and out so many times that it's loosened, it's undergone wear, and you need to replace it. And so we're always happy to see that it can be replaced. And so moving parts being replaced is excellent. The other thing we like to see being replaced or easily replaceable is the battery, because batteries are one of the things that can often go relatively soon, right? I just had to replace a battery on my cell phone where I opened Snapchat, I'd have 50% battery, and then the phone crashed. And it's pretty obvious what the problem was. The thing is batteries can often be a complete hassle to remove. They can use glue, and then, as a lot of us know, lithium-ion batteries are pretty dangerous. You break one of the cells, all of a sudden you have a horrible fire, and you burn down your house or your company, and your boss is yelling at you. So it's one of the things to keep in mind. So with the Nintendo Switch, there was a battery, and it was held in place by adhesive. That being said, I'm probably beating Evan quicker than he wants to be beaten, but
you're doing all right.
The battery can come out with relative ease, and that's good for something that's planned to be used mobily, and something that will rely on that battery.
All right, I'm getting to the battery right now. So the first time I took this out, it was glued in place. It wasn't terribly difficult, but it's a pretty standard procedure. As you guys can see over here, you just pop the connector, which is very nice to work with. And then Nintendo, so this has been torn down before. Nintendo put this great little slot feature in here, so you can just jam a spudger in there and wedge it up. There's currently no adhesive in here because this is our teardown unit, but I'd give it like a 6 out of 10 on strength, about equivalent, a little bit easier than an iPhone, much easier than an iPad.
Yeah, and so that's, I mean, all good things to note. And also, like I said, we pulled the adhesive out because we do not want to burn down DAC. But that being said, this battery is also relatively rigid. If I remember correctly, it wasn't giving a lot. We weren't super nervous applying pressure, which is a giant relief. Another interesting thing we found on here is some removable storage. So that's something that you don't really expect to see in a Nintendo. So it's kind of cool to see that. It's the SSD. It's an SSD, and it's something that pops off. And in a game system console, it's something that's not commonly found. So there's memory could be stored on this. I haven't played with the Switch too much, but I think has there been, Evan, do you know, has anyone said anything about switching that out themselves yet, or?
I don't believe so, but it is a huge boon in case you get water damage, you step on it, you drop it. You know, these are portable devices. It's nice to know that you can get your memory back.
So, interesting thing and a big plus for repairability. I mean, modular components, as time goes on, and often to meet the kind of that more slimmer, prettier design, as we like to call it, design anorexia, might not be the most politically correct, but you start to see a lot more components being just permanently mounted on boards, and it's great. It looks sleeker, and there's certainly abundance of reasons to do it. But for the consumer, it's nice to be able to save your device. And so with something like a memory that can be swapped out easily, or with PCs, if you can remove the RAM, it's pretty nice, and we're always excited to see that. So, in our eyes, the Nintendo Switch, this was a big plus that we found this. I'm going to take a second real quick here, show Evan, and I'm going to collect some business cards. Evan, where are you at?
Pulling out the cartridge reader right now. Actually, no, that's a lie. I'm pulling out the heat pipe right here.
Perfect, that works.
Teardowns are always fun because even when you're doing it for memory, your memory might not serve you entirely correctly, but we always figure it out.
Oh boy, thank you. Whoa, boy, look at this. So people want some tools. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
All right, so we got the heat pipe right now, and next is the cartridge reader. I would take the fan out, but the third fan screw is stuck underneath this connector right here, so we'll have to come back to that in a second.
So at iFixIT, it's interesting because for a lot of the things we're looking at, it's hard because we can't really know what a lot of the things we're actually looking at are, right? There's IP, there's people, for example, if you rip open an iPhone and you try to identify chips, you're not going to pull data sheets after a Google search. That's just not how it goes. So for us, we're always interested with that, and we'd love to share as much as we possibly can with teardowns. But a lot of what we do is really just try to get, a good overview of what we see. A lot of times we get stuff from what we read online. So there's a lot of things we say presumably when we're doing a chip ID, or we guess, and we're often so far from being correct. We get corrected all the time. It's always fun though. We get good emails from industry yelling at us for being dumb and putting the wrong thing, but it's cool because we get to meet people that way, and we get to get yelled at, we get to learn, and it's overall it's pretty fun. Evan, how far are you from the motherboard there?
Coming up hot right now.
Coming up hot?
Yeah.
All right, can I switch back to the... So, without, further ado on that, as I was talking about, we guess a lot. So, with the Nintendo Switch, we did pull out this, and we did our guessing game, and we have a full list online, but there was some things worth noting. Mainly, there's this NVIDIA, what they're calling the Tegra X1 system on a chip. And, we can pretty confidently say that it's NVIDIA. And how do we know? Well, because it's on the chip. So it's not that crazy. But also we read a lot. So it's just trying to kind of see what the hubbub's about and how this performs. And then also, we try to follow up and we see, we're troll Reddit and see what people say about their performance of their Nintendo Switch or where they're having issues. And so, another interesting thing about the Nintendo Switch that we were noticing with the actual Switch itself is they were talking about it scratching in the dock. They put it in the dock, and the dock would kind of scratch the screen. Interesting design kind of error there. Wasn't abundant, but we were seeing it on the internet. So we try to explore that. We heard that if it gets super hot, the dock can get super hot and start to warp. Another thing that's kind of a concern. So we haven't done that test yet, actually. I'm kind of surprised. But that's kind of something we would do at iFixIT, is where we would take the time and try to heat this thing up and leave it in there and see, leave the Switch in the dock and see, well, does it warp? Is that true? Are we reading the right things on the internet?
Just a question. Does anyone in here have a Switch? Show of hands.
We got one user. Do you love it? What's your favorite game? Okay. See, you're ahead of me on the curve. So.
The real question is, have you licked it?
Yeah. Did you lick the cartridge? Your sister did? Is she alive to tell the tale? Yeah. Cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is kind of like our overall approach. And with that, Evan, do you want to start with the Joy-Cons actually, just in the interest of time? Because
yeah.
I showed him the interesting stuff on the motherboard.
All
so
right, yeah, we'll
teardowns
in a sec.
take a little while. So the one thing that we often do when we come and speak at conferences is, luckily they slotted us at the end of the day, and I don't really like talking to people. I like talking with people. So please, afterwards, come hang out with us. Like, that's the only reason we're here, is to chat with people about toys. So if you want to come take a look at the motherboard, please come up afterwards. I'm going to kick Evan to work on the Joy-Con so that I can continue to talk at you for a little bit longer about cool things that we find.
Left or right? Left.
Left is probably the more interesting one. That is true.
Yeah. Anyone in the crowd familiar with the issues surrounding the left Joy-Con? The connectivity issues? All right. Well, Scott, you want to tell people about
Yeah. Well, can
story?
we get back to the presentation, please?
All right.
So, I guess before we even get there, like I said, so we had an idea. We're like, what's the Switch look like? So now, we expect to see some cool stuff in these controllers. I mean, they talk about it having actuators that make it feel like you have a glass with ice in it if you shake it. Another thing we like to do at iFixit, just so before we just dive in, we get so excited to see an actuator that we want to just rip it apart, but sometimes we can get some recon so we don't rip everything apart in the process. So we have some friends at a company called Creative Electron, and sometimes they'll give us a little before the teardown information so that we get cool x-rays to see what we're getting into. So for that, the issues with connectivity, we can try to glean any like information from an x-ray, or if I'm nervous about breaking a hidden ribbon cable somewhere, we can kind of try to get some hints from x-rays. So with the connectivity issues, so here's the left and right. And it is actually, yeah, I think on there, the screen, it's right. Blue is left, red is right. So,
Other way around.
Is it the other way around? Did I
Yep.
flip it? Dang it. All right. Well, so one of the controllers was having connectivity issues, and one of them works fine. So for us, as someone who's going to tear down a device, that's like a question that we would be curious about. Could it be hardware related? Why would one work well and one not work well? So we rip them apart, and you can actually see that they're different. They're not identical at all. One has additional components. And just the layout is also different. So we started to just kind of research, and we started to find out people were doing quick fixes to help with connectivity. But you can kind of see on one of the big differences is you got a big floating black antenna on one side and then on the other controller you do not. So that's a big design difference. And if you actually see on the blue one, there's some traces for you guys, now it's the upper left, there's some traces hidden, and that's essentially what's supposed to be doing the communication. So, or with Bluetooth or the switch, so that you can, actually have a signal. And so they're very big differences, and that's something that we see when we tear stuff apart. Is we're like, oh my goodness, it's no wonder it's having issues, and one's not. They're not the same at all. And then subsequently, we start to look and see, well, does Nintendo make changes? And I think currently they've added foam over those traces to fix the problem. And I think what's been the hubbub, Evan? Do you know?
I think generally they said that solution worked. It was funny because some DIYers, they decided that they thought that the issue was there's a little solder blob directly below. I'm going to point it out over here. This guy right here. They believed that was the source of the issues, that there was some sort of annealing. So a guy actually went and added his own antenna just by soldering a piece of wire to there to augment the antenna. And in the process, he fixed it, but I believe he fixed it because the solder blob was not big enough or not fully connecting. So he did fix it, but maybe not for the right reasons. Either way, Nintendo got their act together, and now there's no connectivity issues.
So, foam is what we saw. I don't know, maybe if one of you guys know and can educate us, please do afterwards. Evan, where are you at? Can we see
I got both Joy-Cons open if you want to switch to the camera really quick. All right.
Evan, how about taking them apart? You should speak to that for a little bit.
Yeah, so overall, taking them apart is not too difficult if you know what you're doing. I discovered this quick little hack where you stick a spudger right in there and pry it open. It comes apart like that. One of the most difficult, I wouldn't say difficult, annoying things is that all the external screws are tri-point screws and all the internal screws are Phillips. So if you're not equipped to deal with that, it's going to be a bit troublesome. Nintendo's been using tri-point screws for some time now. However, we most recently encountered them in the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus, where Apple exchanged Phillips screws for tri-point screws in some of the most pivotal spots in the opening procedures of the repair. So that's frustrating that manufacturers are switching to close standards, but at least we have the right tools for the job, and hopefully you guys will also.
Yeah, and screws is a great example where you can start to look at overall repairability. I don't know if anyone's opened an iPhone, but at the bottom there's 2 pentalobe screws. And pentalobe screws are really weird. You're not going to find them at Home Depot. They're really small, and it's kind of a barrier to entry because, as I was saying, most of the people in this room are very technically apt. So if they need to replace their iPhone battery, they should do it. But one big barrier to entry is a lot of us don't have those types of bits lying around. So we don't like to see that. We like to see Phillips. Of course, we could sell you the tool. We can make money. That's cool. But on the whole, no, we like accessibility because we don't want to see design moving in that direction. We like people to have some ownership over their devices. Can we go back to the presentation? So another cool thing that is in the Joy-Con controllers, just fun tech, because we like to bring up fun tech, and this thing is shredded, so a lot of you might be wondering what it is. It is an actuator. It's the little rumble pack. It's what makes that ice cube feeling. So these are found in a lot of devices, and we'd love to rip these apart because so like the new iPhone 7 will tear apart the Taptic Engine is their linear resonance actuator that they have, and that one's fun. We'll do that on Wednesday, but essentially I just treat it as black magic, but the vibration's being generated along this axis, and it's very, very fine, very fine. Definitely will love to talk about it more since we are kind of closing in on the deadline here, but we love to tear apart stuff and see how it works, and the only way we're going to do this is to break it past the point of no return. I think we also have it with us, don't we?
We do, yeah. I have it right here in front of me.
Perfect. So come talk to us.
You can come take a look at it a little bit.
Yeah, so please do. Come say hello afterwards if you are curious about that. And then also on Wednesday, we're going to do the Taptic Engine, which is actually different, and it's worth noting. Can we go back to? So I think at the end of the day, we got to ask the question: can you repair it, Evan? I don't know.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. Overall, this was a pretty easy experience, and for that we scored it at an 8 out of 10 on our repairability scale. To give you some reference, the Microsoft Surface laptop scored a 0. iPhones tend to score around 6 or 7, iPads 1s and 2s, so 8's pretty good. Let's talk about why. So aside from the digitizer, there's only screws held in place, and that's very easy to access. We don't like that those screws are proprietary. However, we'll take screws over glue whenever we can get them. We also like that most of the components were modular. We talked about the removable SSD, the game cartridge reader, and most components you would expect to fail are removable. Even the joysticks in the Joy-Cons are removable, and anyone who's owned any sort of controller knows that it'll break after a while. Things that we did not like, once again, we did not like the tri-point screws. They're not an open standard, and they're not likely to be around your house. And we did not like that if you have to replace your digitizer, you have to heat and pry and very carefully remove it without damaging your LCD. And as anyone who's owned a portable device knows, you're going to scratch your digitizer, you might break it. So that's not if, but when. And with that, I'd love to take any questions.
Actually, we have a giveaway.
Actually, we have to give away some tools.
So,
Scott, you want to go ahead and pull some?
Yes, who am I? I'm here with Kelton, right? All right, Kelton. First of all, do you have a business card?
Yeah, it was in there.
It's in here?
My mom.
Your mom? You should have said no, dude, because I was just gonna give you tools. It's all right. I still. All right. So first one, close your eyes and pick. We'll do this for the Pro text, and then.
Do you want to just pick? Yeah. So So we have 4 things, and we're gonna pick an order. First gets a Pro Tech. Second gets a Pro Tech. 3 and 4 will
Oh,
be.
no. I think EET's reserved. I got an EET reserved.
All right.
So.
Both of them are just one.
Okay, so the first one, we've got Dimitri Kirov from University of Trento. There you go.
Here you
All
go.
right.
Come on down. There you go. Congratulations.
All right. Okay, so from the University of York, we've got Dr. Martin Trefzer. Oh, you guys cheated. Yeah.
That's not fair.
Ah,
There you go.
jeez.
Congratulations.
All right, and the last EET here. Okay, and Nick Tram from looks like he's got an Xbox. Is Nick Tram here?
There you
All
go.
right.
Awesome.
All right, and then for our last EET, we've got Trenton here, or Kelton, sorry Trenton, Kelton, excuse me. Kelton's the youth, so everyone, if you have cool tips and tricks for Kelton, please tell him, because he's our bright young star. Thank you so much for helping me, Kelton. Yeah,
Yeah.
take it easy, man.
Thank you guys so much for coming out. We're gonna be sticking around cleaning up. If you have any questions,
Yeah,
feel
come
free
hang
to
out if
come
you'd
up.
like. That's what we like more.
Talk
So.
shop, check out parts. Thank you.